When my daughter dumped me just days before Christmas, I canceled our $17,000 holiday trip, and she still didn't see what she'd lost. I booked that trip months ago, saving every penny from my paycheck to give her a perfect family Christmas. But after she told me she didn't want to spend the holiday with me anymore, I knew I had to show her the consequences of her betrayal. What happened next was something she never expected. Looking back, it wasn't always like this. After my husband passed away 2 years ago, I was left struggling to keep everything together, emotionally and financially. My daughter, Sarah, was my whole world, the one reason I kept pushing forward. I worked 2 jobs, skipped meals, and tightened my budget so she wouldn't feel the loss of her father as deeply. I wanted her to have stability, love, and happiness despite everything we'd been through. But somewhere along the way, something changed. Sarah started drifting away. Not just emotionally, but physically. She stopped answering my calls, started sneaking out, and even lying about where she was going. I tried to be patient, to give her space, but the silence hurt more than any argument could. And then, just before Christmas, she dropped the bombshell. She wanted to spend the holiday with her boyfriend and his family instead of me. She said I was too old-fashioned, too strict, and that she didn't need me anymore. I won't lie, those words felt like a slap in the face. The woman who'd sacrificed everything for her was suddenly thrown aside like yesterday's news. But I didn't lose my temper or beg her to stay. Instead, I made a decision. If she wanted to abandon me, fine. But she would see that actions have consequences. I canceled the entire trip. Flights, hotel, everything. I even called the travel agent to let them know. That $17,000 wasn't just a number. It was the embodiment of my love, my hope, my dream to keep our family together during the hardest time of the year. And now it was gone. I sat in my empty living room on Christmas morning, the silence deafening. No laughter, no presents exchanged. Just me and the memories of what could have been. But as I sat there, I realized something important. Justice must be restored. She needed to understand that disrespecting family comes with a price. You won't believe what I did next. Before we continue, please subscribe and comment below where you're watching from. From the moment Sarah was born, I did everything I could to give her a good life. I wasn't wealthy by any means. Just a hard-working single mom trying to make ends meet after her dad left us suddenly. I juggled night shifts and overtime, missing out on sleep and social life so she could have clothes on her back and food on the table. I remember working 2 jobs during the holidays just to afford that trip I'd promised her. A getaway where we could forget our troubles and just be a family again. She was always my priority. I helped with her homework, attended every school play, and wiped away tears after breakups and disappointments. We weren't perfect. We argued like any mother and daughter. But I thought our bond was strong enough to weather anything. Financially, things were tight, but I managed. I sacrificed luxuries I wanted for myself. New clothes, vacations, even a proper car, to make sure she didn't feel the burden of our situation. The Christmas trip was supposed to be a symbol of that. Proof that even with little, we could make memories worth cherishing. But as Sarah grew older, her attitude shifted. She started talking back, making plans without telling me, and showing disrespect I never expected. I chalked it up to teenage rebellion, hoping it was temporary. Then the betrayal came. When she told me she wouldn't be spending Christmas with me, I felt like all my sacrifices had been erased in an instant. She said she felt suffocated, that I was holding her back, that she wanted freedom without the weight of a grieving mother. The hurt was deep, but I refused to let anger control me. I realized I needed to teach her a lesson, not with words, but with action. So I canceled the trip. It wasn't about the money. It was about showing her that loyalty and respect aren't things you throw away without consequences. In the weeks after canceling the trip, Sarah acted like nothing had happened. She posted pictures of herself with her boyfriend's family, smiling and happy, while I was left dealing with the silence and cold walls of an empty home. But I knew the truth would catch up to her. One day, I heard from a mutual friend that her boyfriend's family wasn't as perfect as they appeared. They had their own problems, arguments, jealousy, and secrets Sarah hadn't expected. Slowly, she began to see cracks in the world she had chosen over her own mother. Meanwhile, I focused on myself. I started saving again, planning small surprises and moments to rebuild my life without depending on her approval. I joined a local support group for widowed parents and found strength in stories similar to mine. Then, as Christmas rolled around again the next year, I surprised Sarah. I didn't tell her I was coming to her boyfriend's house for dinner. I just showed up quietly and confidently. She was shocked to see me, and the look in her eyes said everything: regret, guilt, confusion. I didn't yell or accuse her. Instead, I smiled and said, "I missed you. Family isn't perfect, but it's worth fighting for." That night, something shifted. She began to open up about her mistakes, her feelings, and the loneliness she hadn't known how to share. It wasn't an instant fix, but it was a start. The lesson I learned through all this is that betrayal hurts, but it doesn't have to break you. Sometimes the most powerful revenge isn't about getting even. It's about standing strong, showing your worth, and letting the people who left realize what they lost. My daughter may have dumped me that Christmas, but I found my own strength in the ashes. And slowly, we began to rebuild. Let us know in the comments where you're watching from, and don't forget to like, comment, and share the video. After Sarah told me she was ditching our Christmas trip, I sat down and really thought about what her decision was costing me, not just emotionally but financially too. That $17,000 wasn't just some random number. It was months of extra shifts, skipped dinners, and sacrifices. I did the math in my head, saving about $1,400 a month over the last year, working overtime whenever I could, just to afford that trip. Also, she could have one happy holiday after everything we'd been through. Now, she was throwing it all away like it was nothing. I knew I had to make her feel the weight of that choice. The very next day, I called the travel agency and canceled every booking related to our trip. Flights, hotel reservations, even the expensive ski passes. The cancellation fees would sting a little, but compared to what I was about to teach her, that was nothing. I also called the credit card company and froze the card I'd set aside for the trip expenses, cutting off any last-minute plans she might have tried to sneak in. When Sarah found out, her reaction was immediate and panicked. She called me non-stop for 2 days straight, begging and pleading to reconsider. She told me how she'd been counting on that trip, how she'd already taken time off work, and how she felt abandoned. But I held my ground, refusing to give in. I could hear the desperation in her voice, the way she realized that by walking away from me, she was losing more than just a holiday. She was losing the support that had always been there, even when she pushed it away. Her dependence on me, financially and emotionally, was clearer than ever, and suddenly the tables had turned. It wasn't just about the trip anymore. It was about showing her that actions have consequences, and that loyalty isn't something you can just cancel without paying the price. After a few days of frantic calls and texts, Sarah's tone shifted. What started as desperate pleas turned into sharp, cutting remarks. One afternoon, during a tense phone conversation, she said, "Maybe if you weren't so old-fashioned and stuck in the past, I wouldn't have to keep putting up with this. Honestly, Mom, sometimes you act like you don't even belong in our world anymore." Her voice was dripping with disdain, like I was some obstacle she needed to get past, not the mother who had raised her through every hardship. She went on, mocking the sacrifices I'd made, saying things like, "You think money can buy love? I don't want your charity or your pity." The words stung deep. I felt the years of hard work and devotion being dismissed in a heartbeat. But I didn't react the way she expected. I stayed calm even when my heart screamed. I told her, "If you want, I can still help you plan the holidays. I'll cover the costs for your trip with your boyfriend's family. Just say the word." She was surprised, maybe even pleased at first, thinking I'd finally given up. Little did she know I was setting a trap. I agreed to transfer the money, but with conditions she couldn't see yet. I contacted the travel agent again, this time asking them to double-check all the bookings and note any suspicious changes. I also discreetly reached out to a few people close to her boyfriend's family to learn more about who she was really trusting. While she basked in the idea of free holiday plans, I gathered information quietly, preparing to expose the truth behind the perfect facade she was chasing, and the people she thought she could depend on. She thought she had me fooled. But I was playing a longer game, one that would turn her arrogance and insults back onto her. All without her ever seeing it coming, I invited Sarah and her boyfriend's family to what I called a holiday dinner at a local restaurant, a casual gathering that seemed innocent enough, but was actually carefully planned. I made sure to invite a few close friends and relatives who already knew the truth about her boyfriend's family, their lies, their selfish motives, and the way they'd been taking advantage of Sarah. As we all sat down, I kept my tone warm and calm, like nothing was out of the ordinary. But beneath that calm was a carefully woven plan to reveal everything. I had collected screenshots of their secret conversations, copies of messages where they bragged about manipulating Sarah, and even proof of financial exploitation, expenses Sarah had been covering without realizing it. When the moment was right, I quietly pulled out my phone and shared the evidence with everyone at the table. The room fell silent as faces shifted from surprise to shock and then anger. Sarah's boyfriend's family tried to deny it, but the proof was irrefutable. Whispers turned into voices, voices into accusations. People who had once smiled politely now looked at them with disdain. Sarah's smug smile faded, replaced by confusion and guilt. I stood up slowly, my voice steady and clear. This is what happens when you take someone's love for granted and try to use them. Enjoy the consequences. Without waiting for a response, I left the room with my head held high, leaving behind the stunned crowd and a daughter who finally had to face the truth. I realized revenge didn't have to be loud or dramatic. Sometimes, the sharpest justice comes wrapped in silence and undeniable truth. I end the days that followed the dinner. The fallout was swift and unforgiving. Sarah's boyfriend's family began facing the real consequences of their actions. Their business partners pulled out, some longtime friends turned their backs, and rumors of financial trouble spread like wildfire. I even heard whispers that they were struggling to keep up with their mortgage payments, with foreclosure looming just around the corner. The social circle they once flaunted so proudly was closing its doors one by one. Meanwhile, Sarah reached out to me, her voice shaky and desperate, begging for help. "Mom, please. I didn't know how bad things were. Can you help us? I'm sorry. But after everything, the lies, the betrayal, the humiliation, I was done," I answered firmly. "I've done everything I could to support you. Now, you have to face the consequences of your choices." She begged again, trying to pull at my heartstrings, but I stood my ground. My silence was the loudest message I could send. I had given her chances, patience, and love. It was time for her to learn that actions carry weight, and betrayal comes at a price. That period was difficult, watching someone you love struggle because of their own mistakes. But I knew that sometimes, tough lessons are the ones that lead to real growth, even if they come wrapped in pain. I refused to let myself be dragged back into a cycle of enabling and forgiveness when respect and loyalty had been so clearly discarded. I had reclaimed my power, and this time I was holding on tight. With the dust finally settling, I found a new rhythm in my life, one that didn't revolve around waiting for Sarah's approval or hoping for reconciliation. I focused on myself, my healing, and rebuilding the pieces that had been broken. I picked up new hobbies, reconnected with old friends, and even started saving toward a small vacation just for me, a symbol of my independence and strength. Financially, I became more stable than ever. Without the stress of trying to support others who didn't appreciate it, I could finally breathe. I budgeted carefully, invested wisely, and even took a part-time course to improve my skills and open new doors. For the first time in years, I felt secure in my own skin and proud of what I'd accomplished. Most importantly, I found a family. People who accepted me for who I am, who offered genuine care without conditions. It was a circle of friends from my support group, neighbors who had become like siblings, and co-workers who became lifelong friends. These relationships healed the loneliness that Sarah's betrayal left behind. They reminded me that family isn't always about blood. Sometimes it's about those who stand by you when it matters most. I wasn't defined by the pain anymore. I was a woman who had been through heartbreak, betrayal, and loss, and had come out stronger, wiser, and ready to embrace a future on her own terms. The past was a chapter, but it no longer controlled my story. For the first time in a long time, I was truly free. Even now, months later, I hear that Sarah and her boyfriend's family are still struggling. The fallout from their choices hasn't faded. Financial troubles continue, and the social circles they once counted on have closed their doors. I don't feel satisfaction in their pain. Instead, I feel peace knowing that justice has quietly taken its course. As for me, I spend my days enjoying simple pleasures. A morning walk in the park, a good book with a cup of coffee, and laughter shared with my chosen family. I've found a calm I never thought possible after so much heartbreak. If you found justice here, please like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. For another story that inspires strength and resilience, click here. Remember, real family doesn't have a price tag. It's built on love, respect, and loyalty.